You don't look like someone who's ever served anyone but himself. The voice came from the young security guard, arms folded, a smirk caught beneath the light of the charity banners. Laughter flickered from a few guests near the door. Polite but sharp, Arthur Bennett, 84, stood still, one hand resting on a battered walking stick. His coat hung loose, its seams tired from too many winters. He murmured, almost to himself. "Just looking for a seat, lad." The guard shrugged. "Seats are for guests. You're blocking the view." Arthur nodded once, slow and deliberate, then turned away. A woman at the entrance whispered to her friend, her perfume cutting the air. "Poor thing, they'll let anyone try their luck these days." Their words followed him like gravel beneath boots. Outside, the street hummed with evening noise. He walked with that uneven rhythm of old soldiers, every step a conversation with an old wound. The city didn't look at him. Cars slid past. Posters for the event glowed behind him, promising, "Honoring our heroes." He stopped at the first bench he found. His hand shook slightly as he reached into his pocket, drawing out a small box. The hinge was loose, the metal dulled. Inside lay a medal, its ribbon frayed, its edge stained with rust. He brushed the surface with his thumb, then closed the box again. Somewhere, music rose from the hall he'd left behind. Back inside, Emma Collins was helping with coats. She'd watched the scene at the door, not closely, not enough to intervene, but the sound of that laughter lingered. She looked at the untouched stack of programs marked Veterans Fundraiser Gala 2012 and 25 and felt a pinch of something she couldn't name. When her shift ended, she stepped outside for air. She spotted the old man on the bench, head bowed. For a moment she hesitated. Then she walked over, holding 2 paper cups. "Tea," she said softly. "No milk. Thought you might want it." Arthur glanced up. His eyes were pale gray, the kind that had seen more sky than most. He looked at the cup, then at her. "You're kind, but it's wasted." "Tea never is," she said. She sat beside him, leaving a careful gap. For a while, neither spoke. The world carried on, taxis, laughter, the rattle of heels on stone. Then she said, "You were at the door earlier. I should have said something." Arthur gave a faint smile. "Didn't expect anyone to." "Still," she said, "that wasn't right." He looked ahead. "Life's full of things that aren't." She followed his gaze. The banners on the wall across the street showed faces of uniformed men, medals gleaming under spotlights. "They're supposed to be raising money for veterans," she murmured. Arthur's voice came quiet. "They'll raise money. They just won't raise their eyes." She turned towards him, studying the lines of his face, the stillness in his hands. "Were you—" He shook his head before she could finish. "Doesn't matter." He stood to leave, but she noticed the small box slipping from his coat pocket. She bent to pick it up, fingers brushing metal. "You dropped this." He hesitated, taking it back slowly. The corner of the ribbon peeked out, dark red, faded. "Old thing," he said. "Keeps me company." "May I see?" Arthur looked at her, uncertain. Then he opened the box, just enough for the dull shine to catch the light. "That's real," she whispered. "Which one is it?" He smiled faintly. "Long story." Her eyes searched his face. "I've time." He gave a quiet laugh, half breath, half memory. "Everyone thinks they do." She didn't press again. They sat in silence, broken only by the rustle of the city. When he finally spoke, his voice was somewhere far away. "You work there?" "Yes," she said. "Volunteering. My brother served. Lost last year." Arthur nodded slowly. "Good man, I'm sure." She looked down at her hands. "He would have wanted to meet someone like you." Arthur's fingers closed around the medal. Then we've met in spirit. Another pause. Then he looked at her properly, eyes sharper now. What made you walk out here? She shrugged. Couldn't stand the noise. He chuckled. You'll make a poor party guest, Miss Emma. Emma, he repeated, as if tasting the word. Kindness suits you better than pity. She flushed a little. Didn't mean pity. I know. He stood again, adjusting his coat. But thank you for the tea. She watched him walk away, the street lamp stretching his shadow long and thin. Something about the way he carried himself, not broken, just measured, kept her staring. When he disappeared around the corner, she pulled out her phone. A thought itched. She typed the words, Medal Identification British Campaign, into the search bar, trying to match what she'd glimpsed. After scrolling through pages, she stopped. The pattern on the ribbon, crimson with two thin blue lines, matched one image exactly. The King's Fusiliers, North Ridge Campaign, 1956. Emma read the caption twice. Could it be him? She looked again towards the street where Arthur had vanished, the cup still warm in her hand. How many men like that walked past us every day? The question stayed with her, long after she'd gone back inside. And on the bench where Arthur had been, a faint glint of metal remained, a single flake of rust catching the light, as if waiting for someone to notice. The next morning, Emma couldn't shake the image of the old man on the bench. That single flake of rust gleaming in the dark had followed her into her dreams. She sat at her kitchen table, laptop open, tea gone cold. The search results from the night before still glowed on the screen. The King's Fusiliers, North Ridge Campaign, 1956. Scrolling deeper, she found a faded photo, a line of soldiers, sand-whipped faces, a Union Jack behind them. One name stood out in the caption, Major Arthur Bennett. Her pulse quickened. There was a story link beneath it. 6 men rescued after an ambush in the Ridge sector. Unit presumed lost. 1 officer carried them through enemy line alone. Emma leaned closer, her hand trembling slightly on the trackpad. The man in the picture had the same eyes, calm, steady, unstartled. Time had changed everything but that. She whispered to herself, It's him. Later that day, she found herself walking the same route as last night. The city was busy, faces moving past without pause. She scanned every corner, every doorway. Then she saw him, near a newspaper stand, holding a small paper bag, his coat buttoned high. Arthur, she called softly. He turned. Recognition flickered, then faded into polite indifference. You again, he said. You left this behind. She held up a thin wool glove she'd picked from the bench that morning. He took it slowly, a ghost of a smile. Always leaving bits of myself somewhere. She hesitated, then said, I looked you up. Arthur's eyes narrowed slightly. Did you now? I saw the photo, the King's Fusiliers, North Ridge. He stared past her for a long moment. That was a long time ago. Not long enough to forget, she said quietly. You were Major Bennett. He shook his head. Was. That word matters more than you think. She met his gaze. You saved people. They remember you. Arthur looked away. They remember the man in the photograph. That's not me anymore. The conversation hung between them, soft but heavy. She didn't know what to say next, so she offered him another paper cup. Tea, again. He smiled faintly. Persistent, aren't you? Someone has to be. He took the cup, warming his hands around it. You from the papers? No, she said. Just someone who didn't clap last night. That made him laugh, a quiet, honest sound. Good, the clappers never listen. They stood like that for a while, silent. The crowd flowed around them, and for a moment it felt as if they were the only 2 people still standing still. Emma finally said, They're still at the hall tonight, finishing the fundraiser. You could come back." Arthur shook his head. "For what? Another insult?" "Maybe not this time." He studied her face. "Why would you care?" She hesitated. "Because if someone did that to my brother, I'd want someone else to care." Something shifted in his eyes then. Not warmth, not quite trust, but the quiet understanding of a shared wound. He nodded once. "All right, Miss Collins, lead the way." They walked together, slow, deliberate steps down the same street he'd left humiliated the night before. When the hall came into view, Arthur stopped short. The banners still hung bright, promising honor, hope, remembrance. He muttered, "Strange words, for such a small building." Emma smiled. "Then maybe we make them mean something." Inside, the event buzzed again. Guests gathered near the bar, laughter flowing freely. The same guard stood at the door, scanning tickets. When he saw Arthur, his face stiffened. "Not again," he started, stepping forward. Emma spoke before he could. "You might want to check the guest list this time." He frowned. "I don't see." She held out her phone, screen glowing with the article she'd saved. The image of young Major Bennett filled the screen. This man, that medal, that name. Murmurs rippled through the nearby guests. The organizer, Colonel Harrington, turned at the commotion. His gray hair caught the light, his medals polished to perfection. When his eyes met Arthur's, the color drained from his face. "Bennett?" he whispered. "Arthur Bennett?" Arthur stood silently, eyes steady. Harrington stepped closer, disbelief giving way to something else. Guilt. "We thought you were gone. All of you." Arthur's reply was calm. "Most are." The room fell quiet. Even the band hesitated mid-note. Guests shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between the men. Harrington straightened his uniform jacket, voice unsteady. You saved men under my command. I should have." Arthur cut him off gently. "You should have looked out the window last night." The words landed like stones. No anger, just truth. Emma stood beside him, watching faces soften, glances fall. Harrington cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice trembling. "Major Arthur Bennett, King's Fusiliers, North Ridge Campaign." A hush rolled through the hall. Someone gasped. Phones lowered. Arthur's hand slipped into his pocket. He pulled out the small box, opened it, and set the rusted medal on the nearest table covered in glossy brochures and untouched wine glasses. "If you're raising money for soldiers," he said, "start by remembering them." No one moved. The guard stepped back, shame written plain. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Arthur turned to leave. But Harrington called out, voice cracking slightly. "Bennett, the Queen asked about you once." Arthur paused, hand on the doorframe. He turned his head just enough to meet the colonel's eyes. "Then I hope she found better company than this." He walked out slowly. The crowd parted, silent. The only sound was the faint clink of his walking stick against the marble floor. Outside, the night was still. Emma followed him out, unsure what to say. He glanced at her, weary but not unkind. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Not for the crowd, for seeing me." She swallowed hard. "You shouldn't have to disappear for people to notice." He smiled faintly. "Disappearing's the easy part." Arthur looked down at the medal box, still in his hand. "Tomorrow," he said, "meet me at the park bench. I'll have something for you." Then he turned and walked away again, the sound of the crowd inside fading behind them. Emma stood there, watching his figure dissolve into the city lights. What could he possibly have left to give? The question lingered, open, fragile, a quiet hook in the night. The park was empty that morning. Emma arrived early, Breath caught somewhere between hope and dread. The same bench stood by the path, half in shadow. She carried 2 cups of tea, as before, one in each hand. Arthur wasn't there. She waited, checking her watch, glancing up whenever footsteps passed. The light softened, spreading across the grass. A pigeon landed nearby, tilting its head at her. When she finally looked down, she noticed something on the bench. Arthur's coat, neatly folded. On top of it, a small box. The same box. Her hands shook as she picked it up. Inside lay the rusted medal, and beneath it, a folded note. The handwriting was uneven, each letter a small battle. She unfolded it carefully. Emma, you've got a good heart. That's rarer than medals these days. If anyone ever asks about the King's Fusiliers, tell them we were ordinary men who did what was needed. And that's enough. The medals had its time. Maybe you'll know who needs it next. Arthur. Her fingers lingered on the paper, tracing the faded ink. Around her, the world carried on. Runners passing, dogs barking, a bus sighing at the stop. She sat down slowly, the coat beside her, the note resting on her lap. Somehow, the air felt stiller now. Later that day, the story broke online. A local paper ran it first. Homeless man turns out to be decorated. War hero, within hours. The headline spread. By evening, every channel had the same photo. A grainy image of Arthur outside the charity hall, holding his walking stick like an old banner. People left flowers at the park bench. Someone pinned a poppy to the backrest. Someone else left a cup of tea. Emma watched from a distance, unsure whether to smile or cry. At the hall, the organizers issued a statement. Polite, practiced words about remembrance and learning lessons. But when she passed by, she saw something different. The same guard standing quietly near the door, head bowed. Inside, Colonel Harrington had placed a small plaque by the entrance, in honor of Major Arthur Bennett, King's Fusiliers. For once, the room was quiet. A few days later, Emma returned to the park. The bench had become something of a shrine. Children pointed, parents explained, old men stopped to salute. She sat where he'd sat. The box lay in her lap again, the metal catching the soft light. She turned it over in her hands. The rust looked deeper now, yet somehow more alive. She whispered, "You said I'd know who needs it next. I'm still figuring that out." The wind caught the edge of the note, lifting it gently before it settled again. She smiled. "All right, I'll keep it safe for now." She slipped the medal back into its box and tucked it carefully into her coat pocket. As she stood to leave, she noticed a small envelope wedged beneath the bench plank, almost hidden. She pulled it free. Inside was another note, written in the same shaky hand. "If I'm not here, it means I've gone home. Don't fret. The best soldiers I knew never said goodbye. They just carried on." Emma folded the paper and pressed it to her chest. That evening, the hall held a quiet vigil. No speeches this time. No lights. No cameras. Just candles. Emma placed Arthur's coat on a chair near the front. Harrington stood beside her, hat in hand, his voice barely above a whisper. "We failed him, didn't we?" Emma looked at him. "You've got the chance not to fail the next one." He nodded. "Then we'll start there." As the candles flickered, she thought about Arthur's words, ordinary men who did what was needed. She wondered how many still walked unnoticed through the same streets, medals rusting in pockets, stories untold. How many heroes had no one left to remember them? The question hung in the air, like breath in cold. Weeks passed. Life resumed its rhythm. But something in Emma had changed. Every time she saw a uniform on the street, she stopped. Sometimes she spoke. Sometimes she just smiled. It wasn't pity. It was recognition. One afternoon, she visited a care home for veterans on the edge of the city. She'd volunteered there before, mostly helping with letters and tea rounds. An elderly nurse greeted her. "You're the girl from the paper, aren't you? The one who found the major?" Emma nodded, embarrassed. Just did what anyone would. The nurse smiled. Not everyone would. She led Emma down a corridor lined with photos. Men in uniform, framed letters, medals behind glass. One photo stopped her cold. Arthur Bennett, younger, smiling, standing beside men she'd never met. Below it, a brass plate read, Northridge Unit, not forgotten. She traced the edge of the frame with her fingers, then took the medal from her pocket and placed it beneath the photo. I think, she said softly, it's home again. The nurse watched, eyes glistening. He'd have liked that. Emma smiled. So would my brother. She stepped back, taking one last look at the photo. Arthur's eyes seemed to follow her, calm, steady, unstartled. That night, as she walked home, she passed by the same charity hall. The banners were gone, the steps were empty, but the door was open, just slightly, and inside, the faint echo of a piano played an old marching tune. She paused, listening. Then she whispered, Not all medals belong on uniforms. Her hand brushed the pocket where the note still rested. Some belong in hearts that remember. She turned away, the melody fading behind her, and somewhere, perhaps beyond memory, an old soldier finally rested easy. Thank you so much for spending your time with this story today. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a quiet reminder of kindness. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below and join the discussion. Your words mean more than you know. See you in the next story, and I wish you all the best for the days ahead. Take care of yourself and of those around you.